Welcome to the Success with Jewelry podcast, where we invite you inside our conversations about business success and marketing for jewelry designers and entrepreneurs.
We're Laryssa and Liz, jewelry marketing experts with a combined 16 years of experience in jewelry marketing and proven track records in helping jewelry brands meet their goals. When you listen to or watch this podcast, you get an intimate and exclusive peek behind the curtain of all the things you wish you could know about earning success in this industry.
Welcome to episode 96. In this episode, we're thrilled to have Jewel Boxing with us. Xarissa is a fine jewelry collector and styling queen in NYC and New Jersey. In this episode, we're going to discuss TikTok. In the bonus content, we'll dive into which other platforms we should focus on right now. To get access to exclusive content as well as direct access to me and Laryssa, sign up by visiting successwithjewelry.com. Hey, Xarissa and Laryssa, let's get into it.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I know you're so much more than TikTok at this point. You've really expanded it.
True.
But it's a topic that Laryssa and I are not good at all. We don't know anything about TikTok. Or sorry, I'm speaking for you, Laryssa, but I feel like I still don't know anything about TikTok.
Yeah. Well, I think Liz and I just don't work with clients that primarily use TikTok in their social media strategy. So it's not a big priority for us.
Well, I think you were missing out on a couple fronts. I mean, one, just there's some really good scrolling over there. It's very fun as a viewer. I've never tried to learn a TikTok dance, but I'm tempted. There are days. And as a brand, I think it shouldn't be discounted just because I think the impression is that users are really young. TikTok Shop, which is a new feature that's rolled out, has definitely been sort of driving people towards lower dollar purchases. It's sort of a terrible mix-up of Amazon and Shein at this point to shop through the app. However, I know from my own experience and from some other jewelry creators' experience that expensive stuff really does sell through there. And in fact, when I first started posting, the reason I started posting is because all of the jewelry content that I was seeing on the platform was Cartier, Van Cleef, Tiffany & Co., and nothing wrong with those brands, but I felt like there was a really big piece of the conversation that we were missing of all of the smaller, interesting indie designers.
I feel like you really kind of paved the way for jewelry into TikTok. And something that I love that you've done that you continue to do is educate people about jewelry and actually talk about what to look for when you're shopping, when you're investing and all of that. And I think that's really great content.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much of the sort of waterproof jewelry, like PVD plated stainless steel titanium ads that go out there, and people will still come into my comments and be like, hey, what is this waterproof jewelry thing? But it's a lot less now than it was 2 years ago when I started posting. I think I've really attracted an audience who wants to know the real deal, who is looking for the really good stuff.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your jewelry and TikTok journey and kind of what you're focused on now too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I started, as I said, I felt like there was a little bit of a vacuum. The only people you were hearing from were the sort of super high-end, super luxury stuff on TikTok. And then there were the designers themselves, the brands themselves would usually have their own accounts. But I felt like there was nobody doing what I wanted to see, which is kind of more what the fashion bloggers do, which is talking about how to shop, how to buy, how to style things together, how to develop your own sense of personal style with jewelry. And it was something that I was thinking about for myself and really wanted to talk about. And since no one else was doing it, I thought I would just see what happened. And now there's a whole Jewel Talk community, and it's really fun.
That's awesome. So what's your background and how you learned those things yourself, even before you were on TikTok? Was that a passion of yours? You work in that space? How did that begin?
Yeah, no, my career has mostly been in journalism and media. And so I have a really strong research background, and I love a good rabbit hole. So I was not in the jewelry industry at all, but I would say in my kind of early to mid 30s. And while my now husband and I were talking about engagement rings and shopping for all of those things, I realized how much I didn't know. And because I enjoy a good rabbit hole, I spent a lot of time figuring that out because I wanted to feel like I knew what I was buying, that I knew what I was spending. I did not have family that was into jewelry. My mom didn't teach me this stuff. I had to kind of figure it out. And so I like to kind of share that knowledge out to other people who are also feeling a little bit like, I don't know what I'm doing. And, I really want to get into this.
I love that. I love the different tournaments you've done too, like the tennis necklace and then also the colored gemstone, because it's a
Mhm.
fun way to educate people about brands too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can kind of tell them about not just like the brands or the different styles, but you're giving them a language so that they know what to shop for. Even if it's not those brands specifically, they're seeing a whole lot of things next to each other and side by side. And so then they're kind of empowered and confident to go out and find the thing that they're really looking for.
I
One
love
thing that Liz and I talk about on this podcast sometimes is imposter syndrome. And I think, like a lot of our clients and people we talk to, even in the industry, people that have been in the industry for years, they feel almost nervous about being kind of like an expert, or I don't know, like they haven't earned the right to like
Mhm.
share an opinion, but you seem so confident and like, you're just going for it. Do you have advice for people that are like hesitant to do that?
I think you just have to be comfortable being wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's really awful to have that feeling of not only have I been wrong, but I've been wrong in public. I've been wrong in front of, however many thousands or tens of thousands of people. It can be a really difficult feeling to work through, but I had a really great professor once who told me that you don't really learn anything unless you've like gotten it wrong a couple of times, right? If you think you know everything all the time, then you're definitely wrong about a lot of it. That humility, I think, is kind of a good thing. And the downside is just that the internet is not gentle with you when you do get it wrong. So I think you really have to approach it, apologize, own the mistake. We're all human.
I love that. So wise.
that's a wise perspective.
I pretend that I'm wise on the internet.
You come across that way too.
Oh, good. I'll take it.
So I know your answer to this, but should brands consider using TikTok?
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, look, it has really transformed my life in some important ways, but there are some small designers who I think were really struggling to find their footing, find their audience, not just kind of online generally, but on Instagram, where there is a pretty strong community of people who love jewelry. It's a great place to showcase your work, but who just kind of hadn't found their audience, hadn't found their community. And kind of breaking into a fresh new space, finding a whole bunch of new eyeballs basically has totally reinvigorated their business. It has been really, really huge for some of the jewelers I've talked to, not just in terms of sales, but in terms of giving them a really big platform and following that they didn't have before.
I last time I spoke to you, I was like, you convinced me. I was like, I am going to try TikTok. I'm going to put my face on there. I'm going to talk to my audience and this is going to be so fun. And I did try. I have several drafts that I never posted. And
Well, I do see them.
I don't know what's holding me back exactly. This is kind of jumping around on our outline, but like I've talked to a lot of designers who like struggle to put their face out there or to do the TikTok dance, like which you don't have to do. Obviously,
Yeah.
you've proved that. Um, I feel like on TikTok you do need to be like casual, more casual and like talk to the audience or like show your face. Do you
Mhm.
have any tips for brands who maybe don't feel comfortable with that?
So I don't know that you have to show your face necessarily, but I think there does have to be something for people to grab onto, right? I think the mistake it's really easy to make is like everyone says TikTok, Instagram, and Reels and all this. It's like FaceTiming with a friend, right? It's to some extent that's true. You're going to take a casual tone. You're going to be really friendly, but the difference is that like you're FaceTiming somebody you already know. But this time you're talking to people who don't know you at all. So everything you say, especially in those first few kind of posts, those first few things that are going a little bit viral maybe, you really have to tell that story of like who you are in a way where other people can grab onto it and anchor themselves to it, right? I think of like Susanna King London, who really, really surged on TikTok a couple of years ago. She did these viral ring drops, and so much of it was just her showing the process of like the wax carving and the stone combinations and her just kind of chatty going through these this production process. And it wasn't super polished, it wasn't super aesthetic necessarily, but you saw the intention behind the pieces, you felt like you connected to them. And then that process of sort of spreading out the drop where you saw each piece being made, you saw the inspiration, and then by the time they were going live, you were ready to like click that buy button. And so was everybody else. And it's like a sneaker drop, but for gems. It was really, really
Yeah,
cool.
that's awesome.
I feel like a lot of brands are doing that kind of like build up to a drop model, and that seems to
Mhm.
work really, really well for them.
Yeah, it definitely can. Starling is another one that's done incredible stuff with this on TikTok, especially. They really, really know they've honed it down to a formula, right? Um, you know that on a certain day, this batch of gems is going to drop. You know that a few days before, you're going to get a preview. You know that some of them are going to be birthstones, some of them are going to be new, and you have a sense of like what the Starling aesthetic is and what types of stones those are going to be.
Very cool. What was I going to ask next? I
I
totally
was
lost.
wondering to like piggyback off of that. I guess people who are more reliant on Instagram or jewelry brands that are more reliant on Instagram, it's harder to plan that unless you're like consistently getting really good reach because like how can you guarantee people are kind of seeing this whole lead up? Maybe they only end up seeing the actual drop and they miss all the other stuff. Is it
Mhm.
different on TikTok or like what do you see in your experience?
I would say both platforms in the last 9 months that I've noticed have really spread out the pace at which things are getting published. There's a term that we use in like social media marketing of like the long tail, right? So like you post something and you have a big surge and then it kind of goes out into the algorithm for some amount of time after that. And both TikTok and Instagram used to be that cycle was really fast, you know, by the first 6 hours, you had a good sense of how it was trending, and by 36 hours, you were probably mostly like at at where you were going to be. Now I'll see that, you know, my posts that are doing really well, they just keep going. I have posts from months ago that I'm still consistently getting likes and comments and shares on because they're just being recirculated through those algorithms. So it's really about making every potential post a banger
Yeah.
because you don't know what's gonna hit. Sometimes it's just dependent on like, is it a slow news day, right? Sometimes you just get lucky, but once it hits, it really keeps going for a while. So you really have to do that advance work. You have to be talking about stuff weeks, maybe even months ahead of time at this point.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And you're seeing that on both platforms, TikTok and
Yep,
Instagram.
absolutely, yes.
One thing I've kind of heard about TikTok, especially because of the discoverability and the recommendation aspect of it, it's like you can't assume that someone's going to know your brand like when they see your post, and
Mhm,
that they all have to kind of be infused with almost like introducing someone to you just in case there's like someone new. And do you
mhm.
find that that's true? And how do you work that in?
I think that's definitely true. And in fact, you know, some other creators and I have a little inside joke of like the best way to never see someone's content again on TikTok is to follow them.
Oh, yeah,
You
that's
know,
interesting.
when
Yeah.
I scroll through my, you know, there's the following feed of people I've explicitly followed, and then there's the FYP, the For You page, like the feed, right? And when I go through my FYP, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I've never seen before, people I haven't seen before, stuff that's just going viral. And I have to go over to my following to actually find the people that I've explicitly followed a lot of the time, unless they have a post that has hit viral for some reason, and then it shows up on the FYP.
Mhm.
But, you know, you're expecting users to do a thing to like go over explicitly to that following feed, which a lot of them either don't know to do or don't remember to do. And so you really have to kind of tweak what you're doing for like optimizing for that chance you can get on the big feed and then everybody's going to see it.
Mhm.
Do you have to be posting frequently?
I would say the advice used to be, I mean, years ago, people would say, like, you need 3 to 5 TikToks a day. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think I'm at a pretty steady pace now of like 3 to 4 posts a week, and I'm still growing. Not as fast as I was when I did my tennis tournament, because we all love some diamonds. But, you know, it has slowed down a little bit, and I think it's related to this kind of long tail. Stuff is taking longer to get out into the bloodstream, but then it's running for a little bit longer.
Which kind of, makes it more worth it to put more time into making a video. Cause that I found really stressful about when things did like hit and like then we're gone immediately. It was like you put so much effort into these things and then they didn't last very long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also you have to kind of get away from that like dopamine rush of like, oh, I got a million views on this one kind of like really lucky 15-second video, right? But did that 15-second video tell people who you are? Did it make them follow you? Did it make them care about you? Or did they just go like, oh, cool, hit the like button and keep scrolling, and then you never see that person again, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of want to separate yourself a little bit from that sugar rush as much as you can. I've seen brands like go viral, get a million views, get a couple of sales out of it, but then still kind of stall out on growth because that viral post didn't actually invite anyone in to say like, hey, there's more where this came from.
That's a really good point.
That's such a good point. I've been thinking about that a lot because I love looking at like when videos go viral and then I like look at the person's page and have they grown on their page. I mean, obviously I can't look into people's sales data and stuff like that, but I find that to be really interesting because like it's like, okay, you went viral, but that's not leading to sales. So
Mhm.
that's just vanity metrics, right?
Yeah, I mean, it tells you that something about it worked. So you can take that as a lesson. What is it about this that worked? How can I find a way to like keep telling that story or keep replicating this idea, right? Artifacts is a really good one for this, where her videos are very short, they're very optimized for social. It really is a quick little intro. She spins on her chair. She says, do you want to see the craziest engagement ring I've ever made, blah, 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 right? Whatever her little hook is. And it's always a little bit different, but they follow a formula to some extent. And then you see the beauty shots of the ring. You see her doing this hand engraving. You see this like super super vivid bright stone and this like crisp engraving in the sunlight, and like you are hooked, right? And you're like, I want more of that. And because that is her stock and trade, that is the thing she does, she's an incredibly talented hand engraver. People will come back for that because they're like, even if I'm not ready to buy this, I might be ready to buy this in 5 years, and I'm going to keep watching this content until then because I really enjoyed this content. So that is a case where you can go viral while still also grabbing people.
Mm.
Being a content creator is a lot of work because
Yes.
So much work.
just thinking about how dynamic you have to be and like how like
Mhm.
yes you can put a plan in place, you could have like your tennis necklace tournament, but like there could be other things that happen and like things that go viral that you need to comment on or like a direction you need to shift to and things like that. How do you do it? How do you manage?
Not always gracefully, I'll say that. I tend to kind of I keep a lot of flexibility in my content calendar. Maybe that's the way to say it. I literally put posts on like sticky notes, and I'll be like, this is, the pink ones are Instagram and the yellow ones are TikTok or whatever. And I'm going to try to do these on a Tuesday and a Thursday and a Saturday or whatever. But they're sticky notes because I'm going to push them back. I'm going to move them. Something's going to start trending. I'm going to want to do a response post. There might be a really timely issue that comes up that I want to comment on. And so unless something is like a brand partnership that has a really specific due date, it has to go up, or there's some other like reason that I have to stick to the date. I'm very flexible with things. I move them around based on what I think people are going to be interested in. And it's not really so much about going viral, right? But it's like if everyone else in my community is talking about something and it's central to what I do, then I want to talk about it. There's a lot of stuff that people talk about every day that I don't think are interesting, and I'm not going to do those just to try to get on the FYP. It has to really be germane to like what I'm doing for it to
Mhm.
be worth me moving everything around.
How far in advance are you planning?
I would I would love to be a professional about this and say I've got like a month long content calendar, but it's really like 10 days at this
Yeah.
point. But I'm not usually worrying about like, I have a production run of rings that have to sell or be posted on a certain date because of holiday, or I'm not targeting against a Black Friday sale necessarily. The only things that
Right.
are fixed are usually like any brand posts, and I don't do that many of those. So I have the room to kind of play with it. I do try to pre-tape if I'm going on vacation. Have a few things banked so then when I'm like out and about, if I want to not just kind of vanish from the feed for 2 weeks, I can just kind of post those and then I'll set aside an hour to go into the comments. But because I've done that work ahead of time, it doesn't feel like something that's super stressful.
Just so you know, a 10-day out plan is actually very professional. So
Is
you're doing great.
it?
For a
Yeah.
couple of my clients, I do 2 weeks at a time, just so we
Mhm.
can be like flexible and like move things around and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Okay. I'll
But to
I'll
your
I'll
point,
take that.
yeah, like if you were actually selling stuff like you said and trying to hit certain date targets, you'd probably at least have general ideas of things in the future, but it's different for you, as you said.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about like fiscal quarters or any of that kind of stuff. In my day job, we have, more or less a 3 month to 6 month calendar a lot of the time, at least in some of the big projects that we know are going to take a lot of production, a lot of shoots, whatever. But for this, I'm just doing this with my phone, unless I have to go to an event or something. I can kind of be pretty flexible. And TikTok itself is also an informal platform where, like, if my hair is a little messy, there might be one commenter who's nasty about it, but like it doesn't really change the way people think about me in the same way. I'm not worried about like things being too perfect. I think that's actually a little bit of a turn off on TikTok.
and in general, I think that like is kind of veering over to Instagram too. I think that the like perfect content isn't something that anybody's really looking for anymore. I've even seen big brands posting like bench content or process content
Mhm.
that's like very unstaged, and I love it. I'm here for it, but it's different
Yeah.
than it was.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think people are burned out on stuff just feeling so focus grouped and like polished into oblivion. If it's done in a really unique and interesting way, you might grab people for a little while, but really, I think people are just kind of looking to they're looking for something that connects to them, and the word relatability is like so overused, right? It's not necessarily that they have to relate to you, but they almost want to feel like you can become like a part of their day or their week, right? um it really they want to have like a little special place for you in their brain where they're going to come
Yeah.
back and check and see like, oh, that's that thing I really like showing up on my feed, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the storytelling of it all. Like when I saw that you went to the Gem Awards, I was like, yes, this is awesome. Like, like seeing creators like find like cool opportunities and success and things like that is really fun. And I feel like end customers want to see like what a brand is doing, and they want to like feel like they're like with them on their journey and they're excited for their successes and wins too.
I'm really, glad you said that actually, because I've been thinking about that a lot. I almost underplayed that in retrospect because I was like, I don't want people to feel like I'm showing off. Like most of what I do is like educational, informational. Like I didn't make this account to be like glam, let's find the biggest diamonds we can find, whatever. Like no shade to that content. It's really fun and I watch a lot of it. But like I really was trying to create a different voice for myself, and I worried that this was going to come off as like, I am now better than all of you who are hanging out with me on the internet. And I was kind of stunned that that was so far from what happened. People were so supportive, they were so jazzed. People who would occasionally like my comments or like my posts and comment or whatever, but never really interact with me. They were like posting my pictures on their stories and being like, "Yes, queen." I was so touched. Like I got back to my hotel room that night and I was just like tearing up. It was such a like sobby mess because I was just like, "Oh my God, this is so lovely. People really want you to succeed."
Yeah.
They do. And to see you like further into the community, like gives you like the jewelry community at large, like gives you more access. And then you
Mhm.
have like more collaboration opportunities. So it's like, I was very excited for you. I thought it
Yeah.
was awesome.
And
Thanks.
your audience will get more out of it too, like the more
Mhm.
access and opportunities you have.
Yeah, they get more out of it, and I also think it creates a little bit of a legitimacy thing too, because people know that if I don't know the answer to a question, like I have six people I can DM and be like, "Hey, like, can you can I make sure I got this right?" So I don't pretend to be a gemologist. I'm a very, you know, intense hobbyist. I do a lot of reading and a lot of research, and I have a lot of gemology books that no normal person would need to be reading, but I don't pretend to have like credentials that I don't have. And so those relationships are really helpful.
It's probably cool from your end too to see, your followers or people who have been following you for a long time that you've helped educate, grow their collections and like what they've added to their collections and, you know, every time
Yes.
piece and all of that. That must be so cool.
I really love it when I've talked about a designer that I really admire but doesn't really fit my personal style necessarily. So I don't buy something because I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna wear it enough for this to be worth it, right? But then I'll see other people getting really excited about it and they'll add it to their collection. And I'm like, yes, I can see you wear it. That's like the best of both worlds. I get to keep my money and you got something that you love.
Oh man, that's great. So some brands you mentioned, Susan King London, Starling, and Artifacts. Any other brands you love following on TikTok?
Let's see. That's a great question. It really has slowed down a bit in terms of the really like viral, brand owners you were seeing a couple of years ago. I think some people have just like not posted as much. If you were to look at like the most interesting content that I see, it's the stuff where people are really talking about the intention behind what they're doing. So I've collaborated with Blank's Jewelry, for example, partly because I really love their philosophy of doing really fair and transparent pricing on like solid gold basics, but also because they talk a lot about the ins and outs of things like the supply chain. So all of the work they did to source the vendors that they're using, it's like a woman-owned facility in Thailand where everyone's paid like a living wage. They really focus on work-life balance. As you know, in the jewelry industry, that is not always the case. And so really seeing her talk through that process and like share that journey with her followers has been really, really interesting. And that's someone that I not only enjoy following, but really love to work with.
Cool.
That's great. I see how in talking to you, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Laryssa. I see how, and this is how I felt last time I spoke with you too. It's like I see the benefits of TikTok. Like it's such a great place to like tell your story and share transparently with your audience.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not just a reach problem either, but I think people are more prone to commenting and things like that on TikTok. I get a lot more comments and engagement and feedback on my TikTok posts, even if they're reaching a similar amount of people than my Instagram posts. Instagram tends to be like a like or a emoji in the comments, and then that's it. In TikTok, people are actually like having whole conversations with each other. And there's a lot of peer-to-peer connection where you sort of recognize other people's usernames and you have a sense of what they like and you're chatting with each other. And that then feeds your post. It does feel a little bit more like you're just kind of out in like the hallway with your friends sometimes. Whereas I think Instagram can sometimes feel like it's just a little bit more buttoned up, it's a little bit more like surface level sometimes.
Mm, that's interesting.
Yeah, I like
Comments
that.
are always where it's at on TikTok. The second I see like a brand or a viral post or a funny post or a really kind of interesting thought-provoking thing, I don't even get to the end of the post before I'm in the comments. Like I'm looking to see what everybody has said. And actually sometimes in reading the comments, you'll know what the original creator has said because they'll be responding to different points, right?
Hmm.
It really becomes almost like a forum, like a Reddit or something at times where the real meat is actually like in the community engagement. It's really fun.
Hmm. Yeah.
I can get lost in comment sections. So, Laryssa, are you going to try TikTok
Am I going to try TikTok?
after
I
this
have
conversation?
tried TikTok in the past, not with clients for my own business. And I feel like it's just not where my particular audience is, but maybe that's just a judgment, an unfair judgment that I'm making.
It could be. I mean, it could also be that you have not found the creators that are like you. And once you find other creators who are doing things the way that you are, you can kind of share a lot of inspiration and you'll tend to have overlap in followers as well. So
Mm.
that was actually one of the biggest tips that somebody gave me that I found really helpful when I got into TikTok, which is find the kind of creator that you want to be before worrying about going viral. Find those
Mhm.
people, comment on them and their posts, engage with them, see what's working for them because if you like it, there's a good chance that the audience that you're looking for would also like it, and that's where those people are. TikTok is so big and it's, a new user is going to get funneled pretty quick into sort of what is the most popular stuff, what are the best cat videos, what are the best cooking videos, right? Nothing wrong with those things, but if you're trying to kind of find your niche, it can take a little bit of digging, but I do think that it totally changes your experience of the app.
Mm, that's a good tip. How about you, Liz?
I'm gonna look back at those drafts. I did post one in February. So,
Send it to me. I want to see it.
this one was from New York Now, which you popped by. But it was just like my content from New York Now, and I just posted like all of it clipped together to show all of the artists in like one thing. But I know that I think that I need to talk to my audience. I think that there is an opportunity there. I've been doing like live videos on Instagram and stuff like that, and they always like get me very stressed out. But I think that like I get so much great conversation from those that I think that it's like I just need to like put blinders on and just try it.
I think you do. And I think you also need to just like be okay with the fact that like your first few posts, they're probably not going to be that great, and that's fine. Like get all the bad like juju out first. And then once you like start watching these and you're like, oh yeah, that really worked. Sometimes like waiting a few days before you like look at a draft and publish it tells you what's working, and you can either retape or you can re-edit it or whatever. They tend to be short, so it's not, you know, a terrible task usually. And you'll get better. You get better at assessing yourself. I look at my old posts from like a year ago, even when I was like consistently going viral, and I'm like, why was I talking so slow? What's wrong with me? Like get to it, girl. And so there's always that iterative learning that you can kind of you're always going to be progressing.
All right. We're going to try
You can
it.
do
Well,
it.
I don't know. We're going to keep thinking about trying. I'm going to keep thinking about trying it.
Do
Larissa's
we need
probably
a success with jewelry TikTok?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe that's it. Maybe we try it out for the podcast.
I see so much podcast content, and I don't even watch those podcasts, but they just take like little clips, little
Yeah.
bites. It's very like friendly for TikTok. You get like one good exchange, and then everyone is in the comments arguing. It works.
Maybe
Classic TikTok format.
You've inspired us. When we are, when this podcast is like #1 on the charts because we started TikTok, we will circle back to thank you.
Perfect. I'm ready.
Okay. Xarissa, thank you so, so much for being here and chatting with us. Where can everyone find you?
I am Jewel Boxing on TikTok and Jewel_boxing on Instagram.
Is TikTok part of your marketing strategy? Let us know. Visit successwithjewelry.com. And if you love the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Send us a message or leave us a review. Thanks for being a part of our community.